All right, so if you're watching this, you're probably a PS5 player and perhaps you're thinking about getting a gaming monitor. Now, I've got some bad news and I've got some good news. The bad news is that right now, buying a monitor for a PS5 is more complicated than buying one for an Xbox. And that's really the fault of Sony. I'm sure I'll get into that in a later video, but the good news is you've got me and I've done all the research for you. So before you rush out to buy a screen, there are some key things you need to understand about what your PS5 is and is not capable of, and I will make this very quick. First, the PS5 supports 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. The console will also allow you to get up to 120 frames per second on any of those resolutions, assuming the game you are playing actually supports that, so you'll want to look that up. We also know that the PS5 supports variable refresh rate, which is commonly referred to as VRR. And up until recently, VRR was only supported on 1080p and 4K, but Sony has now enabled 1440p support in their latest beta update, which is big news for first-person shooter players. But here is where it gets annoying for PS5 players. Unlike the Xbox, which only requires a monitor have AMD FreeSync or HDMI 2.1, Sony, despite also using AMD for their graphics, does not support AMD FreeSync, and therefore you have to have an HDMI 2.1 port on your display in order to get VRR. This is pretty significant because HDMI 2.1 is still a newer technology, which means it typically increases the price of the display. So simply said, if you want support for either 4K at 120 frames per second at the same time, or you want VRR on any resolution, you are going to need an HDMI 2.1 input on your monitor. So what I want to do now is show you some monitors that I would recommend for the PS5, and spoiler alert, not all of them have HDMI 2.1 inputs. So let's start with the most affordable one on today's list, and that is this 27-inch 1440p display from Scepter. It's crazy how cheap this thing has been selling lately, and considering the specs you're getting, even if you are just a PC player, this is a really good deal. But what PS5 players can expect from this monitor is the ability to play games in either 1080p or 1440p, and while they won't get the VRR, they will be able to lock in that frame rate at 120 frames per second, which most big titles don't have an issue with. So it's just a good all-around monitor for both casual players and competitive first-person shooter players. By the way, I will have all these monitors tagged in this video as well as linked in the description below to make your life a little bit easier. Now, for those of you who want to keep all of those same capabilities but do so on a bigger screen, then I would suggest this 32-inch monitor from LG. It's highly rated, it's a fantastic deal, and you really aren't paying that much more, especially when you consider you're getting an additional 5 inches on your screen. So if you are someone who tends to sit back in your chair more while you play, I think this could be the better route to go. I know there are a lot of you who do want all of the capabilities, including 4K at 120 FPS, as well as VRR support, which means we are going to need to look at some HDMI 2.1 monitors. And while a lot of articles seem to recommend these monitors that are like $1,000, you really don't need to spend that much. Take a look at this one, for example. It's a 28-inch 4K monitor from Acer, and because it's got that HDMI 2.1 input, you'll be able to play 4K games at 120 FPS, assuming the game supports it, which right now, honestly, is still a small number compared to all of the games available. And you'll also unlock that ability to get VRR on other resolutions. And similar to what we did with the previous two monitors, for those who want all that same HDMI 2.1 goodness, but on a bigger display, you're gonna love this one. You've seen it before, 32-inch 4K display from Gigabyte. This will get the job done no problem, and it will even boost that screen size for you without paying a whole lot more, and we're still not anywhere close to $1,000. I know prices always change on this stuff, so definitely check the links that I dropped into the description, and also don't forget to double check the techaudit.tv site just to see if there's any other deals that have popped up since this video went live. And if you are new to the world of gaming monitors and just want to get a better understanding of all of the lingo, check out this video here, which gives a really good in-depth breakdown, beginner-friendly, for everything you need to know about buying a gaming monitor. Enjoy.